Okay, so yesterday we discussed the calculation, the accounting you're supposed to do at the end of the day when you say Shema. And I went in detail to the way the day is supposed to go and the way they actually could have gone. And we're going to continue now. Where are we? On page 119. When the mensch berechnet sich in dem Seder, when a person evaluates himself according to this process that we've discussed, how he's supposed to act. And then he considers not how he should have acted, but rather how he did act, how the day passed. Oh, we did this already. Sorry, excuse me. Excuse me. Thank you.
Should know exactly what.
I don't know. Okay, we're on page 126. Sorry about that. Yes, so that was the day that's the way they should have gone, and they didn't go that way. We should have seen made the ani at kavana. Instead, you're right away saying the words of made the ani, but you're not thinking made the ani. You start the day with worries, and throughout the day saying things which aren't so true, and feeling the pressure of having to work, and not. And then we discussed different punishments that the person has after passing away. One of them is called a slingshot. As we discussed yesterday. Now, 126. After this accounting that you make at Shema, you recite the confession of Al Chet and the Vidoy. Vidoy, the prayer where we say to Hashem, if I sinned in this particular area, I ask Hashem to I should be killed according to the by the law of the court of Bezin Shomayla, and my that's what we say in the video. Ungeriert in the Oasis and the various sins cause a blemish in the letters of Hashem's name. After saying to Hashem the confession for various sins and the various ways we may have blemished Hashem's name by not being careful in tefillin and tzitzis, and the Alter actually in Tanya chapter 7 Gersa Tshuva, he mentions other things which also blemish Hashem's name. Like for example, he says if someone needs tzedakah and you ignore them, that also causes a blemish Hashem's name. And so I'm thinking about the wording of the vidui. The wording of the vidui say is if I blemished the yud of Hashem's name, what should happen to me? So you say the words. I've become guilty in your righteous courts, in this kind of that, or that kind of that. I accept upon myself this death, and may it be as if I was killed through the letter Aleph of your name in the Jewish court, in the grand court in Jerusalem, for the glory of your name. May be considered as if I have been already killed. That's what we say. So after that, what do we say next? We say, into your hands I deposit my spirit. You will redeem me. Hashem is the God of truth. These three words, in your hand I deposit my spirit, are an acronym for the words Be'er. Be'er means a well. There is a cistern and there is a well. Next page. Be'er is an pletzer from Wasser. Both the Be'er and the Be'er both are sources from which water can be drawn. But the Unterschied zwischen they is, but there's a difference between these two places that store water. As Be'er is a grove woman zamelt Wasser, a Be'er is a reservoir where you store water. Und Be'er is a grove woman the Wasser kommt von Qualen welche sind da in der Erde. And a well is a reservoir from where water from beneath the earth, from underground springs, comes into this well. That's what a well is, a wellspring. Das heißt, as a gamber und kommen beide durch in dem Arbe von der Menschen, although a person has to produce both this cistern or the well, there's involvement in human being to create this space. Doch scheiden sie sich unter. However, there's a distinction between them. As Ber is mehr wie angesammelte Wasser und Ber is a Quellwasser. Ber, his cistern, is a place where water is gathered, but it's not water that's coming from the earth. But a be'er, a well, is a natural spring. You've created a space where a natural spring can enter. That's what a well is. So we say before going to sleep, to Hashem, in your hands, I give you my spirit. Those words are the acronym of the word well. Why? Now the Mensch muss abnehmen die Erd oder andere Sachen. A person has to remove in the physical production of the well. You have to remove the earth and other things, which cover the seal of the spring. You have to take off everything which is stopping the wellspring from rising. 128. And then the water flows by itself. And therefore we say this in Shema. Why? We say the words in your hand, Hashem, I give you my spirit. That's an acronym for the word be'er. Why? Because as the neshama is benach is madrega from be'er. When you go to sleep at night, your soul gets filled with the divine energy and divine waters, and it is like this wellspring. As our sages say, when you go to sleep, your neshama ascends into heaven. To receive new vitality from Hashem. It doesn't just mean that you get your body gets renewed energy. It also means when you go to sleep, your neshama gets revived. So if that day you davened at length, and you learned, and you involve that day in mitzvahs. You know what being involved is? It means you're thinking about it. You're trying to do more. And you act with good character the way it's supposed to. Next page. So what happens when you go to sleep is they take your neshama and they bring your neshama into one of the yeshivas, into one of the divine supernal chambers. And they soup up the neshama, they teach the neshama Torah, and they give the neshama more understanding and more energy in serving Hashem. So just like the well is filled up with underground springs, so too the neshama, because it is ascending into heaven, it is able to receive new energy. That's when the day was good. However, if that day a person that was not involved in serving Hashem, nor given and rather instead he was only involved with business. He wasn't careful to say the right thing. He wasn't careful to say lashon hara. He wasn't careful of saying slander and gossip. He wasn't careful about not saying things that are idle chatter. He wasn't careful from expressing jealousy. So when he goes to sleep and his neshama ascends to heaven, he is then given over to the jurisdiction of the angels. Which kind of angels? Next page. The angels which are created from his non-kosher words. He created certain kinds of angels with his non-kosher words, with his words of jealousy, with his words of gossip, with his words of idle chatter. So these malachim they bring the neshama and they show the neshama its own falsehood. This brings the neshama great pain. When the neshama is amaila and zati on the neshama spirit and learning the shivas nechal because the neshama goes to heaven, you can see the other souls. Hey, these guys, they're going to learn Torah. They're going to be given all this incredible farbrengens in heaven, and we're taking you to the slam. You're going to see what you created today. When in ihr gitmen ibr zu malachim v'chazen b'shafen gvarim from the barim asurim. They take the neshama and they bring and they give the neshama to the jurisdiction of these angels, which were created by his own words, and they drag the neshama down to chaos and emptiness. Besides the great pain of the neshama, it's very embarrassing. All other neshamas are going to have this great farbrengen, and you go to work, go to what you did today. So that's why, page 131, in the room, and that's why Hashem tells us to say the words, I give you my spirit, Hashem. Why are we saying those words? This refers to those souls who during the day they served Hashem, and at night they're at the level of a wellspring. However, those who were not involved in serving Hashem, they do tshuva when they say Shema, and they turn to Hashem. They say, Hashem, help me. I know it wasn't a good day. Hashem, help me anyways. That's the meaning of Padisa Oisi. So the first part of the pasuk, that pasuk is saying, that part of the pasuk is saying, Hashem, I did a great day today. I learned, I davened, and now I'm ready to go to yeshiva. I'm giving my neshama to your hands. Let's go to the yeshiva of the heavenly yeshiva. I'm ready to go into the academy right now. Let's go. But then if you realize it wasn't that way, so you say to Hashem, Hashem, help me. In another discourse of the previous Rebbe, he said something different. He said a different angle. He said that even if the day wasn't the way it's supposed to be, but if you, just like when you wake up in the morning and you say Meida'ani, you're supposed to devote yourself to Hashem, not just thank Hashem for being alive. When you say Meida'ani, you're supposed to give yourself over to Hashem. So too, B'yod Chakruch is also an expression of tshuva. It's not just a fact. Hashem, I'm going to sleep now. Here is my neshama. B'yod Chakruch is a expression of my dedication to Hashem. I'm giving myself over to you. So in that discourse, he said that the very fact that you had that thought of tshuva, that you want to give your spirit to Hashem, that causes the next day to be different. It's kind of similar to what we learned in the previous chapters, that when you say Shema before going to sleep, so that the way you say Shema, that's the beginning of the next day. That causes the next day you should wake up with renewed vigor and energy to serve Hashem. So B'yod Chakruchi is the expression of where your Shema is taking you. You've thought about the day, and now you say to Hashem, I want to give myself over to you. I want to do tshuva. I'm yours. And that's why it's called a wellspring, because that decision itself is a wellspring of energy for the next day. Chassidim say you're supposed to go to sleep and wake up with the three garments. In general, Chassidus emphasizes the value of the garments of the soul, and how the garments of the soul are more important than the soul powers themselves. It says in this week's Torah portion how Moshe Rabbeinu sent the spies to scout out the entire land of Israel, and they were not successful. The spiritual parallel of Moshe's spies is trying to change ourselves inside, trying to change all the stuff inside of us which shouldn't be there. Yeshua, on the other hand, he didn't send spies to just the entire land of Israel, only to the Manu, only to the lock, only to the very entry in Eretz Yisrael, Yericho. The parallel for that in our lives is our thought, speech, and action. Why does Yericho mean thought, speech, and action? The word Yericho comes from the word fragrance. And the Gemara talks about, the Zohar talks about how Rabbi Yochanan met some sages, and he said to them, I could tell by the fragrance of your garments, you missed saying Shema today. So the garments of the soul are thought, speech, and action, and they are the key to get into the inner stuff. You can't fix the inner stuff until you fix the outer stuff. You can't start talking about intense psychotherapy and changing the way you think and feel before you figure out how to say the right thing and do the right thing and think the right thing. So Yericha is about getting control of the lock of your soul, which means to be totally present in your words and actions and thoughts, even though your intellect and feelings may be saying, don't do that. But Yericha is sort of like the story of John Nash. John Nash was this amazing mathematician, won the Nobel Prize. He also was tormented by all kinds of demons. He used to see in his head. He used to see these Russian spies, and he used to go crazy. And what he was able to do for years and years, he's being tormented for years. After these years of torment, he was finally able to like turn around and like say, I recognize where the craziness is coming from, and I'm not going to do that. Like he was able to recognize that part of his soul which was bringing him the wrong direction, and they can get control and not go there. So that's the key to fixing up the inside of ourselves, is the thought, speech, and action. So that we're supposed to end our day with a good thought, a good word, and a good action. We're supposed to begin our day with a good thought, good word, and action. That's the key to the day. So the beginning of the day is going to sleep at night. That's when the day starts. It's supposed to do a good thought, which means to make an accounting of the day and to say to Hashem, I give to you, Hashem, my spirit. I'm devoting myself to you. You're supposed to have good words, with actual words of Shema, and a good action to put out your negelvasa, put out the water to wash your hands in the morning next to your bed. That's the good action. That's another garment for your soul, to ending your day with a good garment of your soul. Also, beginning the day, also beginning with 3 garments. Begin with saying Meidani, with your words. You think, not just say Meidani, but as we're learning the Mimer, to actually think that Hashem is in control and you don't let go. And a good action to wash your hands. So that's where we end, that's where we begin the day. That's the key to our day. The reason why Yeshua's spies were commanded to go, and Moshe's spies weren't commanded. Hashem said, if you want to, you could do this. To fix up the inner workings of our soul, that's something that only tzaddikim are capable of doing completely and perfectly. Could do some of it, but fix everything what tzaddikim could do. Yeshua's spies, on the other hand, they were commanded to go to Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because they weren't about conquering the whole land of Israel. They were just about conquering, getting control of the key to the soul, of the lock that unlocks the rest of the soul, the most external part of the soul, the thought, the speech, the action, getting control of the fundamentals. So that's something that we're capable of doing. That's why those spies, their mission was a commanded mission. It was something God said you have to do. It's because that's something we're all capable of doing. So that's the key of the soul. In a similar way, the key of the day is a shema for retiring. And that's what the word Yod Chakuruchi means. That's what the previous Rebbe says in another discourse. In this discourse, he says no, Yod Chakuruchi is about my soul was doing great. I'm not just giving him to Hashem because I'm going to go to sleep, and now I want my soul to go to the yeshiva. And the next part of the verse, to save me, that's another sentence. That's about the guy who didn't do things the way they're supposed to be. So that sentence is, Hashem, help me out of it. I know it wasn't the way it's supposed to be. I regret it. Help me out. Durch Tshuva, let's continue on 131, halfway down. Durch Tshuva, lies stays Hashem is baruch the neshama from the Through Tshuva, Hashem saves the neshama from these bad angels. So although he didn't have such a great day, but he asks Hashem to help him, so that frees him from those angels, and he merits to go to one of the yeshivas in Shamayim. Through the service of Hashem in Shema, which is something which is connected to both body and soul, is from them in the Kev that prepares the neshama to experience this state of being this for the davening the next morning, which is supposed to be in a state of humility and to be in a state of hachna, to be subdued, to prepare for davening. The Mimer said earlier on that there are 2 different components in the Shema which affect 2 different kinds of feelings the next day. Hachna and shiflus. In this discourse, we said Hachna, we give an example of Hachna in this discourse where Hachna is a person subdued because of something that he's lost materially. And shiflus, we said in this discourse, is about being subdued or being humbled because of a spiritual feeling of like I'm missing something spiritually. And so when you're subdued, we said it's a physical, material feeling, and being humbled, the word shiflus, that was a spiritual feeling. So we started off this discussion earlier on in the Mimer saying when you do Shema, that causes something in the Shema, which is a cause to have both experiences, both being subdued and being humbled. But the Rebbe didn't say how Shema does both, as far as I saw in the Mimer. It doesn't say how you see how Shema affects both body and soul. It just says this is what we're supposed to do in Shema, and this will bring to both experiences. And there's something in the Shema that does both. but doesn't actually connect the dots. He leaves that to us. Connect the dots. How does the Shema bring us to the state of which is parallel to being humbled because you lost something physical? And how does the Shema bring us to the state of lowliness where you feel humbled because you lost something spiritual? So he doesn't say that exactly specifically which element in Shema, but he does say is that there's a bodily kind of humble being, there's a being humbled in body and humbled in soul, and they both come from this accounting in Shema. So I'm not sure how to affect each part of your body and your soul to cause them both to be humbled, but he does say that it comes that there is something in saying Shema, making this accounting that does this to the it does to two parts of the to ourselves. It could be. I'm just guessing. It could be. I'm not. He mentioned in the previous chapter being humbled, thinking about the slingshot, thinking about how the neshama is going to have to be cleansed from the mistakes in Gehenna. So it could be that thought is connected to the idea of being subdued. And this chapter, which talks about how the other neshamas are being taken to Gan Eden, and you're missing out and going to Gan Eden, all the other neshamas, could be that's what brings us to the state of lowliness. He doesn't explicitly say that these two concepts are parallel, but it seems very similar because thinking about Gehenim as a shalom, that's something which brings a person to sounds parallel to a person losing out in physical things, and thinking about missing out and going to yeshiva and shalmaila, that sounds like something which would cause us to be a spiritual lack. I don't know, but either way, if to remember that the Rebbe says in our generation, thinking about how terrible we are is going to just derail us from serving Hashem. The Rebbe said that for two reasons we shouldn't dwell in our shortcomings. Reason number one is because of the great virtue of our generation. What's our great virtue? Our virtue is that we've come from the generation of the Holocaust, who've been to all the great pain, not just of that generation, but all generations. We're the last generation of the exile. We've been cleansed a lot from all different pain that the Jewish people have experienced. So we're a step ahead of the game, because unlike mitzvahs, sins don't last forever. Sins are erased through pain, and sins are erased through tshuva. So we've been cleansed, and therefore there's an inner. We're sort of like, imagine if we Chas Hashem would have gone through Auschwitz ourselves. So there was a certain kind of refinement that we would be in because that experience. So we have the merit of being on midgets on giant shoulders, and we don't have to go through all that cleansing that was necessary in previous generations. That's the positive reason why we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves. There's also a negative reason. We also have a very weak psychological makeup, and being hard on ourselves ends up paralyzing ourselves, and therefore it's not something we should do. But I think one point that we all need to take home from this mimer is how just the idea of how humility makes you a vessel for kedusha, and seeing, like the previous Rebbe says and discussed earlier, how there's in the Sefer Torah different size letters, and so too in ourselves we're compared to the Torah, and other Jews compared to the Torah, and we should read our Torahs with the right letters. You're supposed to look at your own faults. Previous Rebbe says with big letters, and your virtues with small letters, and the virtues of others if you look at with big letters, and their faults with small letters. We have to realize, see the value in other people, and see the good in others. There's a law in Shulchan Aruch regarding a kala. There's a kala whose eyes are beautiful, doesn't need to be checked out. You can assume that she's beautiful. Her eyes are beautiful, she's beautiful. So I was speaking about how the Jewish people in Gullus that their eyes are beautiful. Hashem spoke to us face to face, eye to eye. So there's something beautiful in. So we have to look at that, see the beauty in others. What do you want to say, my friend?
Like a triangle. We've got one is Auschwitz, one is North. Seems like the Rebbe is trying to like connect both of these two sort of markers in the life of Krishna and Madhani. Going through that process, it seems like we can avoid depression is a state of helplessness. We feel like we're stuck and we're unable to get out where we're at. But he seems to attach this spiritual and physical struggle with these spiritual acts and awarenesses.
There is something about our becoming a personal vessel for Hashem. There's how to become a personal vessel for Hashem, making yourself a vessel through this lowliness, whatever, not through depression, but making yourself being humbled. He says specifically it's by seeing the value in other people, seeing your own dignity. But he says also that will make you a vessel. Said it in describing shiftless. He said it in describing shiftless, but
like you don't know what you're missing unless you see it in other people.
But look at where he's getting, where he wants to bring you. Look on page 116 where he wants to bring you. He's in 116, 117. He says, I want to bring you to a place where you're saying, where you're davening and you're asking, you're accepting upon yourself the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, and you're asking Hashem to be zoicha, I should be able to Avos Yisrael. That he wants us to sincerely ask Hashem, I want you, Hashem, please. What I care about most is I should have more Avos Yisrael. That's madrega. He wants you to really care about that. How do you get to there? So he said that comes through shiftless. Where does shiftless come from? So he says in shiftless specifically, he talks about comparing yourselves and seeing the good in others. There he says that in he mentions this in page 107.
I just see that as it's more of how you interface with others. And we have my mind where you're struggling to interact with others and see the good in others, and that creates a certain spiritual challenge. But here it just seems like the way that your betacha and your connection to Hashem causes it's like a serenity, a calm, where Hashem is good, Hashem provides, everyone is good. There's no, because it's all about serving Hashem, your behavior in spiritual and in physical is not focused on anything except revealing God.
Sounds good. There's a lot in this mimer. A lot of got unpacked from this mimer. But I
like when it's talking about business.
Yeah.
End of it. I need a break from a mimer of like your own way of you having to interface in the world, not like the annoying guy in shul or the guy that screws you over in business. Like, just how do you have that tough and calm? And when you're calm and you're not stressed out with physical, so then you have an opportunity for spiritual, and then you're not bothered. You have like a level of empathy because like Hashem has so much mercy, infinite mercy. He'll give you a million chances, but we don't give people a million chances, right? We want a million chances. Hashem, don't punish me, please. It's a mistake. I couldn't. I was caught up, whatever. But for others, like, how could you? How shouldn't they have known?
I think that wants to bring us to a place where we see our shortcomings and then see the virtue of others. And my Zayd used to always say, he says, humbleness doesn't mean to be humble for Hashem. Humbleness means, the Rebbe says, it means to see the good in others. That's what the true idea of shiftless is. That you could see the other people's mind.